Stardate 98102.81. Welcome back to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast covering brand new Star Trek and beyond. I'm your reluctant and unwashed captain, Mike Garcia. With me on the view screen is
Mariah Gossett.
Clyde Haynes.
And
Clyde
Grant
Haynes.
Davis. I got your loofah, buddy. I'm going to bring it over there. Give you a nice scrub down.
Yeah, I need it. This week we're live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, celebrating another one of our favorite characters from Star Trek Discovery in anticipation of Discovery Season 3, whenever the hell that's coming out. This time we're focusing on Philippa Georgiou, Prime and Mirror Universe Variety, played, of course, by Michelle Yeoh. That's coming up, and we're also going to share our opinions on the big Star Trek Lower Decks news that came out this week. Surprise, surprise. And we want to know what you guys think about that show. Of course, we will be covering that show every week when it comes out. And but first, I want to announce something really cool. I want to announce that we were able to raise more than $600 to support organizations that promote racial justice in America.
That's awesome.
So
That
great.
is amazing.
Fantastic.
We believe Black Lives Matter, and that's why we're donating 100% of our Patreon funds for the month of June, plus listener donations to organizations supporting Black Lives Matter, including the Austin Justice Coalition in our home of Austin, Texas, 401, and the Black Lives Matter Global Network. And I truly want to thank everyone who donated outside of our regular patron dues. We are truly humbled by your help for this important cause. We'll be sending the funds to the organizations later this week after Patreon finishes doing its collecting. And this just means a lot to us. And we're so happy we could all come together as a community to help raise awareness and show some support for BLM. Thank you so much. And we're not done with that. We're doing another fundraiser for the month of July. Mariah, can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So we realize that as this pandemic continues on, there are more needs within the community. And so for the month of July, we're going to be donating funds, as well as you can donate to our collective using the same link that we have been using, donate.startrekpod.co. We will be donating to the Okra Project and the Central Texas Food Bank. The Okra Project is a collective that seeks to address the global crisis faced by Black trans people by bringing home-cooked, healthy, and culturally specific meals and resources to Black trans people wherever they can reach them. It's a really cool organization. They bring in a trans chef into these folks' homes and actually has them cook for them and provide meals. It's a really interesting and awesome organization. And then the Central Texas Food Bank is our local food bank here in Austin. They have been on the front line of hunger relief with the help of partner agencies in 21 counties across Central Texas. In last fiscal year, they provided 39.2 million pounds of food to families in need. And right now, on average, they're feeding over 200,000 individuals every month. So really great organizations, and I'm glad we can continue to raise funds for folks in need.
And thank you guys so much for your support. That's awesome. I didn't know about the Okra Project, but I love this idea of them like going to the house to actually have that kind of that contact, that direct outreach like that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really
Yeah,
neat organization.
I didn't know it was that.
Wow.
Was that involved? That's great.
Me either. And the whole idea of culturally specific meals is fascinating. I mean, that's important.
Like
I think
very
it,
considerate. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to remind everybody to, especially our live viewers, if you could remember to tag at Star Trek Pod or type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital Pod in front of your comments. We will mention them later on the show, on tonight's show. And make sure that you share your favorite Georgiou moment, Prime or Mirror, and any other opinions that you have about Captain Philippa Georgiou tonight. And we'll keep an eye out in the chat for that.
All right. Before we dive into Georgiou, I do want to talk about the Lower Decks announcement and the teaser and some of the just what you guys think about it. And if you're in the chat, guys, let us know what you think about what we've seen so far of Lower Decks. But first of all, before we get to that, I think Mariah has a story to tell us about how she's famous now. How are you famous, Mariah?
Apparently, I had a weird moment over the weekend.
It was awesome, not weird.
It was awesome. So if any of y'all have been to some of the cons in Vegas or on the cruise ship, you might know the organization Gaze in Space. That's how I have to say it every time. They have been doing virtual meetups and chats with the cast from Star Trek Discovery, benefiting different charity organizations, specifically around the LGBTQIA plus community, which of course, I'm going to support. And so I made a donation and got to go on the stream. And I highly recommend their events if y'all are ever looking to kind of meet up and chat with other folks within that community. But yeah, Anthony Rapp, who, if some of you might know, listens to our pod on the occasion, was one of the guests, and I got chosen for one of their trivia portion of the evening, and he was playing on my behalf. And when they read out my name, he went, "Wait, from the podcast?" So I had a very large fangirl moment. So I was very excited.
That guy
and
just
he says hello.
He surprises me so much every time he mentions.
That is awesome.
Wow, so
He
cool.
recognized you just off of your name.
I know. I mean, it is a weird
voice, right?
and unique name. And well, they read my name off, and then I appeared on the view screen, and I was like, "Yes, from the podcast." And he was like, "Oh, Mariah's on the Star Trek Discovery pod," and they cover Discovery and Picard. So very cool. And so if anyone is joining us who saw that on Gaze in Space, hello and welcome.
Can you sign autographs for me?
Apparently, I want a signed poster of some kind that will be mailed to me at some point. So as soon as that gets here, it will be predominantly displayed.
Can you
turn it sideways in the back?
Can you Zoom Anthony Rapp right now and get him in on the pod?
Special guest.
We could try.
Damn, big time.
Big time.
I can't get over how exciting it is to know that he listens. Yeah, that's pretty cool that he actually listens.
Yeah, and he seems, both him and Mary Chifo, who is the other guest on the talk, were just so wonderful to everyone who asked them questions. And like, Mary Chifo is just so into everything Klingon. It's so impressive, and like how deep she is into that, and also how deep she is into social justice work. So if y'all are looking for someone to follow for resources and organizations, like, she's posting about stuff all the time. And I'm continually impressed with her performance and her acting skills. And, hopefully we'll get to Laurel before we get season 3, and we can talk about her character as well.
Yeah.
Mary Chifo is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen her in a bunch of interviews, so
I wonder if she's going to be in a big part of season 3, since they left her back 1,000 years in the past.
I know.
Well, that's awesome.
I hope they do something with her, because she's awesome. I was like, you can just put her in another different full makeup alien, or she could play a human. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, so let's talk about Lower Decks, guys. And if you're listening, in case you haven't heard, we have a new Star Trek series premiering next month. Star Trek Lower Decks premieres Thursday, August 8th. And yes, we will be covering every episode on the pod weekly. Surprise, guys. We're covering a cartoon.
I'm stoked.
Yeah. And we'll be covering every episode. It's a 10-episode first season on CBS All Access. They still haven't announced what they're doing, like overseas, or if it's going to be, if it's going to drop, in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever. So we'll have to figure that out as it comes along. But it's going to premiere on Thursday, August 8th. This is a comedic animated series. It's been in development for a while. It's created by Mike McMahon, a writer and producer who worked on Rick and Morty, co-created Solar Opposites on Hulu, along with Rick and Morty's Justin Roiland. And I think the show looks pretty awesome. Give me your takes, guys. What do you think?
I mean, I love Justin Roiland. I love Rick and Morty. I think that that show is so clever with a lot of its writing, how it plays on lowbrow humor, but also a lot of really considered world building and kind of layering in of details that end up paying off in future episodes. And I think those kind of elements, as well as just wildly bizarre character antics, can really play into this in a fun way and potentially bring in a wave of maybe at first toxic fandom that will hopefully benefit from being exposed to the world of Star Trek in a positive way.
Are you referring to the Szechuan sauce heads?
Oh yeah, I mean, Rick and Morty's great. Their fan base, but then again, I've heard that about a lot of. I heard that about the Trek fan base that was going to be off-putting, and that has not been my experience here. So, but it was my experience with Rick and Morty. So I don't know what my point is there. I'm just saying, maybe we can get the positive benefits of it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I loved the original animated series, so I think it's really fun to kind of revisit that in today's modern lexicon, which I think Rick and Morty has sort of surpassed. Like the pop culture, meme culture is like so well known, and so that style is also very well known. I think of like Rick and Morty and like BoJack Horseman as being sort of those two sort of adult animated pillars out right now. And there's been the split is now there's Solar Opposites and then Lower Decks on the Rick and Morty, like half of that. And then there was Tuca and Birdie, which is also getting revived as well. That's on the BoJack Horseman side of the animated sort of stylistically. But I really enjoy adult animation. So I don't know if it comes from my very twisted childhood of watching things like The Last Unicorn as being one of my favorite films of all time. So I'm like really here for it. I also think the voice lineup is great, and we're gonna see some really funny performances. I had a feeling we might get this earlier than we were going to get Discovery, just because I've talked with some other friends in like the film and animation circles, and obviously animation can still happen remotely much easier than live action productions can. And so I think we will see not only a rise in how quickly we're going to see animated shows now, but I think we might also get more animated shows, honestly. So yeah, I'm excited. I love Tawny Newsome. I love her podcast. Yeoh is This Racist? If anyone's looking for another podcast, it's very good. And then Noelle Wells was one of my favorite people from SNL. So I'm really excited.
Mariah, what is this Lower Decks thing from the original series? What's that about?
Well, Kleider might be able to explain it more because it's been a very long time since I've seen that episode. But there is a Star Trek The Next Generation episode called Lower Decks, which I believe is the inspiration point for this, which is all about sort of the periphery characters on the ship.
Yeah, Lower Decks is a really great episode in which we don't focus on any of our main crew members on TNG. I think it was somewhere in the middle of the series, maybe season 5, maybe later, but season 5 or 6 or 7, I might be wrong. But it basically focused on 4 or 5 lower junior officers, maybe 3 or 4 junior officers, and one bartender who worked in 10 Forward. And it basically just follows them for a couple weeks and their lives, and it shows what they're like and gives us a different perspective outside of it gives us a different perspective on the leads of the show. Like Riker comes off as kind of a gruff asshole to these guys. And
oh wait, this is The Next Generation.
Yeah, it was a TNG episode.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it was season 7, episode 15, and
one of the
I remember this 7. Now. I'm looking.
One of the better.
Yeah, I'm looking at a poster.
Right on.
And it is. I remember Nurse Alyssa Ogawa was in it, and that it was the pull in. Like you had a couple other people, but The nurse is someone that we saw frequently, kind of around like Beverly Crusher and whatnot, and so that was kind of the pull in to kind of seeing this group of kind of regular Joes on a starship. So kind of cool.
And
I'll jump. Okay, Mike.
if I remember right, the Lower Decks episode, it has a lot of comedic moments, but it ends up being a tragic story that is really heartfelt and really impactful. One of the more impactful season 7 episodes before the finale. I remember really liking it. And it's kind of surprising to see it associated with a comedic animated show, even though it's kind of about crew members in a similar position, because the Lower Decks episode is pretty sad. But who knows? Maybe that'll speak to the complexity that we're not seeing in the promos for the Lower Decks animated show. Like Rick and Morty, sometimes it can be pretty dramatic and pretty dark and pretty deep. So hopefully we'll get a lot more from the Lower Decks animated show than just a bunch of good jokes.
Yeah, I think I am taking a bit of a wait and see. Like, I think Rick and Morty is a pretty cool show. It took me a while to kind of get into it. It wasn't until, Mr. Meeseeks that I actually started thinking like, okay, I kind of see where we're going. That being said, this feels a little potentially off-brand for Star Trek. From a humor standpoint, it makes me want to go out and take a look at Solar Opposites to see what that tone might be like. But that's my only thing is like, okay, where are we going? Because so far, everything that we've seen, while different, when you look at Discovery and Picard, the brand has been similar, if not evolved. And if I think, like, if you were to ask me, what do I think about Rick and Morty meets Star Trek? I'm like, I feel like you're coming in from two very far places in terms of kind of tone. So I'm super curious.
I'm excited about Star Trek branching off into different iterations. Because
you might have had me at Don Lewis, so I think I'm in.
Clyde, you and I, and Jerry O'Connell too. Clyde, you and I
Oh yeah.
kind of grew up with the TNG, the DS9, the Voyager, the Star Trek shows of the 90s, which even though they had their differences, like for the large part, visually, tonally, they were very similar. And I think what we're seeing now with the new iteration or the new era of Star Trek, we're seeing different shows. Discovery, it's its own thing. Picard was similar to Discovery, but it wasn't as action-based or as bombastic. It was more poetic, a little slower, more of a drama. So that was somewhat of an offshoot. And now we're getting a comedic animated show. And then we're going to get Strange New Worlds, which is going to be kind of a modern type of throwback. So I love all these different iterations of Trek we're getting now. It's going to keep the brand fresh, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Are we gonna dive into talking about Michelle Yeoh?
Nope.
Yeah, let's call it. We're done.
Now we're done. I actually
Good show.
There are a
See
few
you guys next
comments
week.
about Lower Decks that I wanted to bring up from the chat real quick.
All right.
Yeah. So Dennis McElwain says, there's a surprising amount of criticism for Lower Decks just for how it looks. And I don't really want to take too much time talking about this, but do we have a shot of the ship? Is there a shot of the ship that we can bring up?
Oh, I think that poster you had pulled up, the first image.
Yeah, let me do that. There's a ship. People are mad about the ship already. Like, I'm just seeing this online everywhere. Like, oh, this ship looks dumb. It's upside down. And why are the nacelles not connected to the thing? And who cares? It's a cartoon. It looks awesome. It looks great. I love that it has these purple hues. It's just great.
Understand Trek people complaining ever.
Never.
Hey,
What?
it kind of looks like a starship Cadillac to me. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, it looks kind of red. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a simple enough shape you can just animate it a bunch.
Well, I'm also, I like to think about things within like cinematic universe, the universe that's created by the storytellers, and I'm like, in my mind, what if like Lower Decks is an animated show that is taking place during like the Federation time? Because like we have shows in contemporary sphere that are animated that are about, like police and mutant ninja turtles, and like you have to suspend your reality. And so in my mind I'm like, what if this is like an animated show that like Starfleet officers would watch?
All right.
In which everything is fantastical, so it doesn't have to exist as its canon in this universe. It's instead a fantasy of this universe.
I get that. That would be a cool idea, but I believe it is in canon. I think they Trek or CBS has come out and said this is in canon. It takes place right after the last TNG movie, so it's kind of in that in between space after was it Nemesis, after Star Trek Nemesis, and between Nemesis and Picard. And we might get some TNG cameos on this show as well, which could be pretty
I'm into
cool.
that.
Yeah. Another one from Dennis. Lower Decks
What is Michael
looks
Dorn doing?
perfectly fine. Yeah, I would love to hear Michael Dorn show up on this show. Looking through the comments. What else do you guys think about this show? Are you ready to cover it?
Yeah. And it's only going to be 10 episodes. It's going to be quick. It's easy. It's animated. It's going to be fun, light, airy stuff we can talk about.
It's probably going to
Do
be a
we
little
know
bit
if it's going to be an hour
different.
or a half hour format?
I believe it's a half hour.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking forward to being able to talk about a show again, I guess. Not that it hasn't been fun getting to do these character deep dives, but in a way, it does seem like we're just kind of antsy for that next show to kind of pop up. So yeah, I want to dig in.
I want the new content. Marge says Lower Decks features an African American female captain. So that's great. All right. Do we want to dive into some Georgiou talk?
Let's do it.
Okay.
The pansexual villain of my dreams.
There were a couple questions in the comments like, are we going to talk about Prime Georgiou? Are we talking about Mirror Georgiou?
Yes.
Yes. The
Yep.
answer is yes. We really don't have an outline for how this conversation is going to go. I just really wanted to celebrate Michelle Yeoh, who I really love, and I've been a fan since Crouching Tiger, and was so excited to see her, to hear that she was going to be on a Star Trek show. Even though when we watched the premiere of Discovery of season 1, I was just waiting for her to die because I think she was billed as a guest star. And
Billed as a red shirt, I believe.
billed as a red shirt. And sure enough, she did. But as the season went on, she came back. And it's been a pretty wild ride with Mira Georgiou. I do have some... I guess I want to get your hot take on Mira Georgiou right now. So let's hear some hot takes.
Hot freaks.
Hot freaks.
I won't go first after having said that.
I
Yeah,
can go.
My voice is giving out too. Yeah, go for it, man.
So I've actually just started rewatching Discovery from season 1 because I figure by the time I finish it, maybe I'm telling myself we'll have season 3. And I think it's phenomenal how incredible Michelle Yeoh's performance is between Prime and Mirrorverse, because now at this point we've seen Mirrorverse Georgiou over like a season and a half, and just seeing how different the mannerisms are and her speech patterns, and how like in that first episode, and then even when you get her last will and testament, when Michael gets the telescope, it's such a different aura to her, for lack of a better word. Like she seems so caring and loving and like a true mentor, but also obviously a badass. She goes hand-to-hand combat with some Klingons in that episode, and we see that she is such a well-rounded captain, and is then, you know, it's so phenomenal. Anyway, I'm just so thoroughly impressed. And then we get her in the mirror universe version of her, which is so like sort of Slytherin-esque in a way. You know, she's conniving and ambitious, but also a little like wink and nod evil, but I think has the ability to transform as a character. So I'm really excited to see what they do in season 3. With her, and then whatever might happen with this Section 31 spinoff. I don't know if they're just like, we want to hold on to her, so we need another show, or if it can just be like she's now in Discovery. Anyway, I love it. I think Georgiou is a phenomenal captain and a phenomenal evil captain.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that, Mariah. I think part of it is when we see mirror universes, when we see kind of people, one actor playing twins, it's such a trope. It's such a usually a goofy trope, right? It's the mirror universe person has on, you know, a fake mustache, and they're deliberately trying to seem completely opposite. That I don't know what I completely expected, right? And so I think part of what we saw when we talked about Tilly last time was that Mirrorverse Tilly was just kind of the complete opposite of Tilly, but it was really so much more kind of confidence and the physical appearance, right? Like it was kind of big and clear. The thing that is magnificent about the job that Michelle Yeoh does is it's almost like they're two absolutely different characters. You almost think that she approached it as two separate jobs altogether and really did the character work to figure out who they were, though they came from a very similar kind of upbringing, you know, a lot of loss. You know, Sarek asked to for her to take on Michael Burnham in both timelines, but they're so different in their mannerisms, and how they think, how they move, that it's truly a magnificent performance by Michelle Yeoh, and it makes sense. I think, Mike, like you, when we first heard about Discovery and you heard that it was gonna be captained by Michelle Yeoh, you're like, well, this is legendary status, right? Like she's got like Hall of Fame credentials, and then she dies in the first couple episodes. You're kind of like, I don't understand. Now I get it. You needed someone like her who could pull off what you were looking to do. So consider me a huge fan in the work that she did.
Yeah, just going out that, we have a comment from Marge. It says, yeah, Michelle Yeoh drew me to disco. And I think I didn't think about this, but that's probably true for a number of people. This was some star power that was brought into this show, which I'm sure attracted a lot of people to it. And just being a nerd who's not just a Star Trek nerd, but I'm a TV nerd, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that this international star who was playing the captain of a ship that is not called the Discovery on Star Trek Discovery is probably not going to, this character's probably not going to last very long. And they probably paid this international star some good money to show up in the pilot and bring some new eyeballs in. And that's what they did. But I wasn't there. I wasn't behind the scenes. But they knew what they had with Michelle Yeoh. And they brought her back in such an exciting way. I really do love the mirror, Georgiou. I'm reading this book.
Oh God!
I mentioned it before, called Drastic Measures.
This guy,
and it's all about Prime Georgiou meeting Prime Lorca, which is like Squee. Awesome. And it's great because the picture of Prime Giorgio we see in this book is it's such a deeper picture of the character than we ever saw in Discovery. Even though we did get some good stuff from her in terms of how what type of leader she is, in terms of her being kind of a parental figure to Michael Burnham, and then when she passed, and Mirrorverse Giorgio showed up. You know, sometimes it feels like the writers just don't know what to do with the character in terms of, and this is a little bit of criticism, in terms of, oh, we're just going to make her what we want her to be for this story arc. So sometimes she's an absolute villain who's extremely unredeemable and like slaughters people and eats Kelpians and commits genocide. And sometimes she's like the really quippy, funny badass who we love to see slice up bad guys with a sword. And I think I think what's interesting is that we haven't seen a full redemption for Mirror You Giorgio, even though she's stuck in the Prime universe. And we have seen kind of a softening of her villainy over the last season. But she kind of is still a genocidal, homicidal maniac, which gives her like a great edge. So I'm always toggling between my love for the way Michelle Yeoh plays this character and the danger and uncertainty and the quips that she offers and where she takes the story, and she's so unpredictable. And I love all that, but I'm also like, but deep inside, doesn't she like want to commit genocide, and isn't that bad?
She's a big fan of genocide, as far as I can remember.
I mean,
big fan.
I'm not a big fan of that. So,
yeah, I mean, there's this little known show. It kind of passed under the radar of a lot of people, but it was called Lost. And it was on this channel ABC.
Take a shot.
And if you guys are familiar with the show Lost, one of the lead characters, Jack Shepherd, was initially going to be played by none other than Michael Keaton.
The Batman.
He was going to be cast as that lead character because they had the exact same idea as what happens with Michelle Yeoh's Philippa Georgiou. He was going to be presented as the person who immediately takes charge, becomes the leader, everyone turns to him, and then he dies in the first or second two-parter episode, pilot episode, whatever, however they had it planned. That was going to be the big twist. Michael Keaton dropped out for whatever reason and probably lost out on a bunch of royalties, whatever. But I always thought that was such a cool idea. And then when it kind of came to fruition here with Michelle Yeoh, I was like, that's what I love. I thought it was a great way to establish this relationship, make Michael Burnham very vulnerable, because a lot of what Giorgio does is she builds up the character of Michael Burnham for us, the audience, right? She's the maternal figure for the beginning. She makes Burnham a sympathetic character for her loss of her mentor and her maternal figure, and she also is a little bit of an antagonist in the first couple episodes because Burnham's butting heads with her in decisions of how they should handle that whole situation. Give them a little bit of that Vulcan hello, if you know what I mean. But she's given 2 hours in that two-part pilot episode of Discovery, and that's a movie length of time for us to get to know a character. And I do feel like I had a really good sense of who she is in those first couple episodes, her drive, her character and integrity, that made it all the sweeter. Thank you. That made it all the sweeter when we get this complete flip version of the Mirrorverse, and you see that I got that sense at least that Michelle Yeoh kind of started hamming it up at the beginning, but it felt like everyone
Mhm.
was.
Yeah.
It felt like everyone in the Mirrorverse is just kind of mustache twirly, like we're evil. Mwahaha. um, so for it to play over the long haul, she had to make the character a little bit more grounded. And what I kind of take away from it is like she is a survivor in the world of the Mirrorverse. We have this Philippa Georgiou character who not only survived but thrived to become the empress of the Mirrorverse. And you're right, Mike. That comes with a lot of genocide and eating of Kelpians and just being an absolute awful person. But to now have this chance to strip all that away from this character, take them away from their queendom, and be like, you're now stuck in this prime universe where you've lost all of that. You've lost your actual daughter from that universe. You're stuck with this other version who does not care for you in the same way. You don't have the control of the universe like you had. In a way, it's lost, but it's also like, I'm sure, a huge relief. And how Michelle Yeoh gets to play that character and kind of grow and develop in a universe that isn't so cutthroat, but is a little bit more optimistic and roots for you is fascinating, and it does make her sympathetic. It reminds me, of another show, Clyde. If you want to check this one off the list, Game of Thrones, with a lot of characters, of course, but in particular, Jaime Lannister. You establish right at the beginning, this guy shoves a little kid. Spoiler alert! Shoves a little kid out of a turret of a tower and paralyzes him for life. And like over the course of the seasons, they redeem this character to the point where you're actively rooting and hoping that he can turn everything around and be one of those archetypal heroes that we want in a story. Where are you getting these worst of photos? Anyway, I've probably taken up my way more than my fair share of talking about this, but I think her character fits into this world so well, and she does a fantastic job of making not only her storylines interesting, but enriching the storylines of everyone else who has to work with that kind of character within this universe.
You make a really good point about her redemption and how Discovery, especially Star Trek in general, but Discovery especially, does a good job of reminding us about the ethos of Star Trek, about its aspirational nature, right? And typically the way it does that is by showing us the darkness first and then showing us the Starfleet way in order to get us into the light. And I think with the character of Mira Georgiou, we get a prime opportunity to see someone to change and to grow.
And it's always about a bunch of outcasts seeking some form of redemption, right? There's the person who left his entire species behind, and he wants to make that worth it. And talking about Saru, there's Michael Burnham, who committed treason and started a war with what she thought was the best of intentions, and she's seeking redemption, but she was cast aside from everyone. And there's, of course, Philippa Georgiou, who's the worst of them all. But if she's in this environment with this group, this ragtag group that are looking to kind of bring someone in and be a little bit more open and accepting, because who among them is the first to throw a stone, right? She's probably not used to that environment. She's used to the Mirrorverse. I think it's really cool how we keep seeing that.
Yeah, I was really surprised at the end of season 2 to see Mira Georgiou hop into the future with the Discovery crew, because I thought we were going to get a Section 31 show starring Michelle Yeoh, which would have been fine, but I'm interested to see what happens in season 3 if somehow she's going to travel back and lead Section 31 there. Is she going to create Section 31 in the future? And does that mean that there's going to be a rift between her and the Discovery crew that's unrepairable? Or are we just never going to get that Section 31 show, which would be fine as long as we see
I bet Strange New Worlds, like, they saw the buzz around those characters and decided to just drop Section 31 and just keep her on the show and drop Ash
They might
Tyler.
have just dropped it or put it off to the side for a while, delayed it. Who knows? What do you guys think? Do you think we'll actually get that Section 31 show? And if we don't, what do you think the future for Michelle Yeoh's Mira Georgiou is in Star Trek?
I think that the Section 31 show is something nice to have in your back pocket. But like Grant said, I think Strange New Worlds, if you were kind of interested in about a Section 31 show, it was because you're a Star Trek nerd who was interested in Section 31 and the idea of bringing in and spinning off Michelle Yeoh. You were like, yeah, that seems cool. But when you saw Pike and you saw Number One and you saw, I don't want to call her Braceface, but when you saw those characters, you immediately knew, I'm watching this show, right? Like and it was big enough. Strange New Worlds, at least to me, felt big enough that if you're gonna put it on behind a paywall, you need something that's really gonna draw people in, right? Discovery has that type of cachet where people are going, well, I'm at least gonna wait to right after the season and then drop my money so I can binge the season, right? I feel like they're stacking up these shows where it's going to get harder and harder to do that because the content is so compelling. You're going to want to stay in. I think that's what you get with Section 31. I mean, with Strange New World. I don't know that is what you were going to get with Section 31. And now what you have is you've got Georgiou on the Discovery where you can grow and evolve her character. I think she's going to stay a bit of the villain. I think you not, villain's the wrong word. I think what she becomes is the anti-hero. Because what we have is we've got a bunch of heroes. Even if you like Saru, we've got a bunch of heroes. I think Georgiou steps up to be the anti-hero against the true villains that the ship will come in contact with. I don't know that she's going back. But if you find a hole in your schedule, you could always bring her back through some loophole that'll be a stretch and we'll all take. We'll complain about it on the podcast for 1 week, and then we'll mention it only when we recap the season.
So, according to Kurtzman, Section 31 was supposed to start filming after Discovery premiered. So, because everything's been pushed back, but they have scripts done. It's show run by Erica Lapolte and Bo Yon, and they have already started pre-production. So
Really?
Apparently it did get pushed back because Michelle Yeoh was filming the new Marvel, The Legend of the Ten Rings.
Ooh.
Oh, the Shang-Chi.
Wow.
So it's happening. So we'll see how it kind of comes to fruition. I think, they announced the Pike show because they've got a lot of push around it. And so it was like, let's make this big announcement. It'll be very exciting. It'll keep the fans at bay for a little while we can't actually film anything. So obviously everything has been paused due to COVID. I know a lot of the production houses have been having really big meetings around safety and what it's going to look like. There's talks about all actors shooting their own scenes individually and then having to be CGI'd together. So it's going to be very interesting what television looks like in the next couple of years. So
Please don't give me that. Please.
Yeah, I don't want.
I don't want that
give me
either.
that.
So it's like I'd almost rather them wait for a vaccine and then we'll get good thing again. I don't know.
I'm kind of fascinated. I want to see it.
I'm getting Phantom Menace flashbacks. No, thank you.
They just do South Park where it's a little paper versions of everyone talking to each other. Oh my
but
goodness.
but yeah, I think it'll be. I think the whole redeeming story arcs. Wakanda customer service put up. Not sure how I feel about redeeming characters who have committed genocide, war crimes. I kind of I have mixed feelings because I think people can be redeemable and can come to be better people. Are they fully redeemed for what they've done? I guess that depends on your personal beliefs about all of these things. Yes, what they did is terrible, but this is in a fictional world and she's coming from an even different universe. Anyway, um I but I think on Section 31 her evilness would almost be more interesting played there because it's like how evil is too evil, right? If this is already a secret society, a secret, sort of department within the Federation, like what is the level of evil going on here and how is she going to play into that? So I'll be interested to see how her character ends at the end of season 3. If they don't somehow get rid of her within the first few episodes, just sort of say she found a way to jump back and she's gone, peace.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. Because I could also see that happening because if she was, due to scheduling with Marvel and trying to get all of that shot, because I think that has like a release or at least a timeline of when that might be released. So yeah, shoot dates, schedules. This is all the boring stuff about TV, but
But it's very relevant now.
yeah, super relevant now to what content we're going to be getting.
But I agree with what you're saying, Mariah, about her being this villain, and it is a fictional world. Can she achieve this degree of redemption to any sort of satisfaction of the audience? And it's not going to be black or white. It's going to have to be something much more nuanced, and having her grounded in a way that she has this tether, this relationship with Michael Burnham, humanizes her to this monstrous version that we were presented with from her Mirrorverse. And I mean, this is kind of, I have more questions that maybe we could do a whole other episode about this Mirrorverse, because I'm fascinated by it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but at the same time, my understanding is it is a world full of more evil doppelgangers of everyone. It's cutthroat. It is brutal. And if you're operating in a complete universe of everyone else who's opportunistic and evil like that, what does it end up transforming you into? Like, this is about how environment cultivates the type
nature
of
versus nurture.
nature versus nurture, and
Mhm.
how if you're put into a positive environment, can you redeem yourself around people who actually encourage the best in you? And
I think that's the story we're getting because that is what Star Trek largely is about. It's about trying to better yourself, learning from that example, growing. And I think Chupi had a great comment in the chat here. She says one thing about Georgiou or Mirror Georgiou is that her behavior in the mirror universe was how it was done, normal in the MU. She's not a person committing these acts in the Prime universe where it is seen in a completely different light. So, yeah, to your point, Grant, that's just the way things were done in the mirror universe.
hey,
That
we
is
all
a
did committed genocide.
I was just following orders, and that's but no, there is something to that. In order to have any kind of not just power, in order to survive in that universe, you have to be cutthroat, and that's not how it is in the Prime U.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this storyline before in lots of characters. We have Seven of Nine. We have Commander Kira from Deep Space Nine.
Major
We
Kira.
have Major Kira. we have a lot of characters who have have done terrible things, but have found ways to redeem themselves and to figure out these things. It is a little bit different in some cases. The Borg characters were under the Hive Mind Collective, and all of that can be said. And there's some chat about this in the comments as well. But I think it is something we've seen before, and I'll be interested mostly to see if she does go through that redeeming arc, or if she just stays mid-level evil the whole time, and what that does.
One of the best
I
things
think
about this kind of character, though, is like you think about like Benjamin Linus and Lost again, Lost. But
Take another
Spike
shot, y'all.
and Buffy,
This is the drinking game.
Sark and Alias, I guess. You have this kind of nemesis character who does the bad things and is the dangerous character, who's a very useful resource for the characters, right? For the plot. Like, we can't do this, but we need someone who can. And we've already seen how she's operated in this Prime universe when the Federation tapped her and been like, we need you to help us with this war because we don't know how to get out of it. And you are a
Ruthless.
dangerous weapon that we want to point in the most useful direction for us. And seeing her kind of pop in to plots here or there to be pointed as a weapon and just thrown in a particular direction is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think there's something else at play here that's going to be interesting. I've been thinking about this as we're talking, and whether or not I think redemption is possible. And I still don't have a full answer to that. But what I do think we'll see is growth and evolution, for two reasons. One, as people have been mentioning, the environment. The environment in the Prime universe is different, right? And while she'll test that boundaries, and grant to your point, she will be the edge of the sword that they use to do things that they wouldn't, or they would question doing, and she'll find herself saying, I will do the things that you can't do. But also, I think that where we're going to see her evolve is this relationship with Burnham, because no matter what happens, we're still looking at a very significant kind of coachy, mentor, mentee, mother-daughter relationship in some form or another. Even though they're from different universes, they know each other so well. They care about each other so much. And I think that, like any mentee-mentor relationship, Burnham, Prime Universe Burnham, is going to have a significant impact on Mirror Universe Georgiou. I just think there's no way around it. And will it soften her to the point that she'll be warm and cuddly? No chance, right? But will it bring her just on this side of homicidal maniac? Sure. And so I think we'll see something around that. I mean, I'm not asking for much. Just stop the genocide. That's all I'm saying.
As long as they don't do that trope,
you can still eat kelpians.
Don't eat Saru, please.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I want Doug Jones on the show. As long as they don't do that trope of like wiping her memory, and she forgets and she's a different person, so they hit the reset button that way so we can forgive her of her sins. They did that. They've done that in a number of TV shows. The last one I remember was iZombie, where they did it with one of the main villains, and it was just kind of like. Ugh.
But do you see her moving toward like active regret? I mean, I feel like she's a product of that environment, and she knows what she did to survive, and she just kind of owns it. She's not necessarily looking to recreate that in an environment where she doesn't need to.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen very much remorse from her character. I think it's more she's continually opportunistic with all of the things that are going on, and finding ways to use her skill set to survive. She is first and foremost a survivor, and then also someone who's power hungry. And so, I think the Trek trope would be to give her this redemption arc, but I honestly would be more interested in seeing how she's going to continually manipulate the system to get what she wants and needs out of things, because I'm not sure that level of evil can be totally redeemed, right? Like, we don't we don't see that very often with full villains unless it's a children's show, which this is not. You know, we don't get the nice wrapped up
Yeah.
lesson at the end of the show where everyone learns that they
No
did
Full
something
House
bad.
moment.
No Full House moments, no Adventure Time moments. You know, it's like
Mhm.
these characters. I think she's going to continue to be less evil, but evil is going to still be at the core and foundation of her character.
But to your point, like her relationship with Burnham does kind of show those glimmers. Like that maternal relationship there shows regret. That's the place where we are starting to kind of break through the cracks and get her to be more prime human.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. But I
You
think
know what?
she,
It's
I think she really represents something that we saw in Deep Space Nine. By the way, guys, I like that Deep Space Nine show. I don't know if you've watched it.
Let me
I
write
had
that
no
down.
idea.
Really good.
Deep
Some
Space
people
what?
call it DS9.
that's a show. That's a
Star
show.
Trek Deep
What
Space
is
Nine.
it?
Yeah.
What's it
I
about?
saw a campaign online to get Deep Space Nine in HD 4K, and I'm here for it. Let's continue that conversation.
Yeah, let's get all the old all the old Star Trek shows in HD 4K, please.
Oh, you're not gonna like it.
No, it
even
actually
worse.
it looked really good. They did some DS9 scenes in high def in the documentary, and it looked pretty good. But Section 31 was introduced in Deep Space Nine, and all the Section 31 stories were boiled down to this dichotomy that we see between cynicism, which is basically what fuels Section 31, and hope, which is what fuels Starfleet. And I think that tension was really palpable and powerful in those storylines. And I think that's what we're going to get and what we have been getting with Georgiou. Because in season 2, the way the Federation tried to use her to blow up the Klingon homeworld to win the war was that tactic was not based in hope or progressive values or anything like that. Those things that we associate with Starfleet and Federation, they were based in cynicism. This war is not going to end. These people are never going to be our allies. We need to destroy them. So let's activate this Benjamin Linus-esque asset that can do this for us. And that really reminded me of DS9 Section 31 stories. Whenever there is a huge threat that has the Federation almost on its knees, Section 31 is activated to try to do something terrible and cynical to eliminate the threat. So I think it's a natural choice for Star Trek to create a character like Mirror Yeoh Georgiou to embody the kind of the ethos of Section 31. So I don't think she's going to be redeemed. I don't think she's going to have a change of heart over who she is. I don't think she's going to break down and say, sorry, I ate all those kelpians. That was wrong. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we will, and we have seen a softening of her character when she is around Michael Burnham, who is a person who she obviously loves. And when you are connected to someone that way, they will influence you. And Michael Burnham, we've seen, is the shining beacon of hope in Discovery. She's the one who drags everybody towards the light. And I think she's really doing that with Mirror Georgiou and will continue to do that. But she can only do it up to a point. Georgiou's still going to be bad, and she's going to create Section 31, and it's going to be based in who she is, who is this dark character. Yeah, it's great.
You know, I don't want her to change too much. And the reason why is because I think there's an opportunity to say something with the character. So if you think about we've been talking about, nature versus nurture. We've been talking about the environment. If you look at the Mirror universe almost as like a culture, right? So that we've brought her from this this foreign culture, this alien culture. I don't know that we need or want or there's benefit in the whole to have her assimilate and become Prime Universe Georgiou. I think that there is something to be said for the way she kind of cut her teeth and became emperor, and the experience that she had that might actually be a benefit to the Federation, right? That maybe, to your point, Mike, maybe there's a time for scientific journey, and maybe the ideals that the Federation stand up for are fantastic, but maybe you also need, you know, a sharp sword, right? To stand up to the Klingons, the Romulans, the Cardassians. Like, not for nothing, yes, the Federation is about scientific exploration, but they also have quite a number of war machines at their disposal. And so maybe you need both. And I think that Georgiou can have a pretty significant impact on the Federation kind of having this duality, if rather than assimilate, they can kind of learn from her and the tactics. I mean, she was emperor when you think about that for a second. Like, she ran the whole thing. So she at the very least understands politics and strategy.
Mm-hmm. All right, lots to think about and talk about with both Georgious, especially Mira Georgiou. Guys, I do want to wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on Star Trek Discovery Pod. We will be back next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Central, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Just go to StarTrekPod.co for links to watch the live stream on any of those platforms. And what are we doing next week? Are we covering the Lower Decks episode of TNG? Do you guys want to do that?
I think we should. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
So, Clyde, you said that was in season 7 of TNG, right?
7:15.
All right. So everybody watch season 7, episode 15 of TNG, Lower Decks, and we'll cover that episode next week. And we'll see if we get any more Lower Decks news, and we'll talk about that on the pod as well. And I think that's all we got for this week. I do want to remind everybody to visit donate.startrekpod.co and help us raise funds. Mariah, can you remind us what we're raising funds for again?
Yes, we'll be raising funds in the month of July for the Okra Project, which helps provide in-home cooked meals for Black trans folks wherever they can reach them. I think they're primarily based in New York City. And then we'll also be raising funds for the Central Texas Food Bank, who provide over 200,000 meals per month in Central Texas.
And that's in our hometown of Austin.
Yep. Doing good stuff. So yeah, donate.startrekpod.co. Help us raise those funds so we can continue to do some good things for our community.
All right, Grant, can you let people know how they can help us out?
Yeah, I mean, once again, you can go to patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Go there and make a per episode pledge. Give us $2 an episode, and you can join us in our private Slack channel. We also do exclusive little episodes for our patrons, just show our thanks, our gratitude, including the Badass Women of Trek series that Mike and Mariah have been doing, and us doing our reviews of some of the Star Trek films. So if you guys want to come check that out, it's patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
And as always, a reminder, hey, follow us on Twitter, Instagram. You can reach us at Star Trek Pod. Tweet about this episode. Please let people know how much we were in the weeds on Philippa Georgiou. And as always, I want to give a shout out to 2 people who keep the trains running on our social media feeds. Shout out to Karen, who runs our Twitter, and James Worm, who helps out on our Insta.
All right, thank you so much for joining us on Star Trek Discovery Pod Live. Remember, we're asking you to help promote the podcast on Reddit.
Red
on
up.
Reddit.
Red up, man.
So hit up the Star Trek fan subreddits, post our episodes. If you see anyone talking about Star Trek podcasts, let them know you listen to Star Trek Discovery Pod. Thanks so much, Clyde. Where can we follow you online and hear more from you?
You can find me at Clyde Haynes, or you can get me at www.keyandclyde.com. That's KEIandClyde.com.
Grant Davis.
At Baron Von Grant.
Mariah.
At Mariah Gossett. That's Mariah with Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Follow me on Twitter at Mike M. Garcia. Live long and prosper.